Tech Social. My name is Gabi. I'm the host and I'm a business analyst here at Cogent. We have Edgar with us, which is an associate director and our moderator on every event that we have. The topic today is from idea to impact, navigating the IT startup landscape. And we will embark on this journey that explores the dynamic world of IT startups, from conceiving an innovative idea to making it like a tangible impact with it. We will dive into the details of navigating this evolving landscape. We have Darian with us, which he will have the time to introduce himself in a bit. But if you have any questions, please feel free to leave them on the chat or raise your hand. We will take them. Thanks again for being here and welcome. Edgar, over to you.
Yes, Gabi, thank you. So welcome once again to another one of our Tech Social episodes. And as Gabi was mentioning, we have Darian Stephens with us here today. We are pretty excited to know more about his experience and navigate this space of IT startups, which sometimes I feel there's like this idea that or there's like this let's say image that we can get from that, like pretty much everywhere. But in my opinion, there's like the idea of it and the actual thing. So I'm pretty sure Darren will help us discover more about what it's actually looking like to be an entrepreneur. So thank you so much, Darren, again for being here with us today. And over to you. Please tell us more about yourself.
Absolutely. So, hey everyone. I'm gonna say good morning for my time zone. But Gabriella, Edgar, thank you for having me. Glad to be here. So my name is Darian Stephens. Previously an ed tech startup founder. I'm based in Michigan in the U.S. And right now I currently work as a product owner, and I've worked in a few high growth startups as well and in the product role. And so I'm excited to kind of just, like Edgar said, just help shed some light on the startup landscape experience. And answer any questions where I can.
All right. That's amazing. Thank you, Darren. Yeah. So I don't know. I think we should start from the beginning, right? And
for sure.
To me, yeah, to me, normally that sounds a bit like having an idea, right? And many people kind of try to start from there. But I would like to ask you, based on your experience, how is that initial process? Is it really starting with an idea, or is it more like exploring the market or talking to people? What would you say is like the best way to start when we are working or trying to create a startup?
Yeah. So, they say hindsight is 2020, right? So I can look back at my old self and give a lot of different answers than I probably would have before. But I think a problem that you personally experience is always like a great place to start, something that you resonate with, you go through it, you experience it, you're frustrated by it, or you understand it really well. So, of course you could, try to brainstorm with people or just come up with an idea. But, a lot of times it isn't always reinventing the wheel and creating like a new idea necessarily that makes a good business. It could just be improving something that just isn't really efficient today. Right. So I think a problem that you experience and you want solved yourself is a great place to start. If you're annoyed by something and you feel really passionate about solving that problem, that is a great feeling to kind of start out with.
All right. So that definitely sounds interesting, because sometimes I feel or find things that are a bit annoying. But then let's say that you start finding this kind of things that you can start solving. What would you say would be like a good criteria to start saying, okay, this might be really a good idea, even though it's something that I need to start working with?
Great question. So you had mentioned it before, Edgar, like talking to people, right? So like it's one thing that you experience the problem is great because you need to understand it, but then getting that validation from other people is going to be super important. So talking to other people, and not always talking to people that see things the way you do. You don't want always people that agree with you or have the same personality as you or that even know you personally, right? Sometimes it's better to talk to strangers and get a more objective opinion about something. So, have a lot of conversations, and that could be, you can get feedback in a lot of different ways. So whether it's an online survey, whether it's an in-person conversation, have as many conversations, get as much feedback as you can. I think a really important question that we don't ask early enough as founders sometimes is someone willing to pay for this? So you might have a really good idea, and you understand it and you think it's a great solution, but it might not be that important for people that they're willing to pay for it. So to that next point, Edgar, I think is really important to understand whether or not somebody would be willing to pay for it, and if not, find out why. So if they say no, I still wouldn't look at that as a like ditch the idea and start over, but try to dig into why wouldn't they pay for it, or what would it take for them to consider paying for something like that, and then just continue to kind of go down that rabbit hole of trying to put the pieces together and figure out what a good solution would be.
All right. So I think you touched two very important points as well. And at the same time, one of them, when you are trying to talk to people, right? And you are trying to exactly go beyond your personal circle and really try to get more ideas from different perspectives. So what can we do to engage in these conversations? Because sometimes we are always or we all are kind of busy all the time, and we have our own things to do, our own agenda maybe. But how do you start, for example, these conversations, and how do you engage with people so they want to explore the idea alongside you, right?
Yeah,
So
great question, and it's hard to say because I think it's different depending on the industry and who your target market is. So for me, I was in ed tech, so I was trying to get in touch with teachers a lot, teachers, principals, administrators, but mainly teachers. And so for me, it was a matter of trying to get time on their calendar. I would meet with them in person typically because dealing with the schools, it was really important to have like relationships with the teachers and to really know them personally, really understand their teaching style, their classroom environment. So depending on who you're trying to talk to, this could be a great format, what we're doing here right now, right? Like virtual calls, screen sharing, walking people through a prototype, a demo, or asking them to show you how they solve a problem today. Or just again, just listening to them. I think it's important to get face-to-face time with people because you get to really hear the tone of their voice, right? Facial expressions. It really says a lot about how frustrated they are about certain things compared to just getting like answers on a Google form, which is still helpful. It's still data. You can still do a lot with it. But I think that's why it's important to have that balance of talking to people in person, whether it's, I guess, face-to-face virtually or face-to-face physically. Just being able to, like you said, insert yourself and really hear firsthand from them, like what the biggest pieces of the problem are, and try to understand that. So as much face-to-face interaction with your potential customers or users as possible, I think is important. But again, yeah, you just want to get as much information from them as you can as possible. So if they're hard to reach, because I know a lot of times, really important people are hard to get a meeting with. So you might only have email correspondence, or you might only be able to get a survey, and that's fine. But I would strive for face-to-face interaction as much as possible.
Yeah, that's really, like very fruitful once that you manage to get into that. Yeah. And what about, you mentioned this that you were on the education space, right?
Yeah.
So how was that? I mean, like, did you, for example, had a chance to, I don't know, maybe be there in a classroom while they were, like giving lectures or stuff? Or in your opinion, is it just about talking, or also kind of get that feeling from the real thing? What would work best?
Yeah. So so the problem I was trying to solve was accountability on group projects. So basically, students, you could put 4 people in a group, but teachers never had a good way of giving a fair grade to everybody because they don't know who did what. So that was the problem I was trying to solve. So there was an application, and the main thing was trying to get it into the classroom, right? There was a lot of decision makers from the like I learned a lot about different schools, all work differently. You have a different buying process, different decision making process. So, I would a lot of times try to talk to either the principal or a teacher directly, because those were the two people I found who could actually kind of say yes or no. A lot of other people I talked to, might not have been the person to make the decisions. So that's why I started focusing my energy there. But once I got into the classrooms, like I said before, it was a lot about the relationship with the teacher. What problem was the teacher facing in their classroom? And that was very different, depending on what school I was at. But being, like I said, having that physical time. This was also before COVID as well too. So I guess that's worth noting, just because I think people have become a lot more open to virtual things since then. But back then, I was very much in the classroom with the teacher, helping them set up. So like onboarding on the application, or even helping troubleshoot with students, because again, I was in the early stages at the time, wanted to get feedback on the solution, on the product, and I didn't want anybody to be stuck on the app itself. That would prevent them from giving me any sort of good feedback. So I was usually there in the classroom a lot of times with the pilot testers, to really see and experience, like, where do they get stuck? Why are they confused about certain things? So yeah, at that time for me, and I also didn't have a huge team as well. As a startup founder, I had like a very small team of maybe 3 or 4 people at any given time. So a lot of it was me physically being there, kind of to help assist, troubleshoot, doing all those things. I didn't have great systems at the time to account for that, so I had to do it myself. Long-winded answer there, Edgar. But yeah, in a
No,
nutshell,
no worries.
I was always in the hands-on as much as possible.
All right.
Yeah.
And now that you mentioned about your team, right? Did you have a co-founder for this particular startup?
Yeah,
Or in general, do you have that experience about working with co-founders?
exactly.
How does that look like?
That's a great question. I had people who were on my team early, but what I learned was that it was hard to consider them a co-founder unless they had the right skill set that was necessary. And so I had a lot of people who came in and helped at different parts in the process, or like I had a few interns at one point. But in terms of the core team, I actually ended up, they weren't like a co-founders as in like we split shares and equity or things like that, but it was more of a like hired co-founder in a way, like a third party team. So I had a project manager, and I had a developer who was basically he kind of served as the CTO in many ways. But I did all the product side of things. The project manager kind of helps coordinate everything between myself as the founder and the developer. And then that was how we built our initial MVP. And I would say that, so us three kind of made up the core team of kind of getting the MVP built. And then, like I said, I had other people as needed to help with like events sometimes, going out and doing demos for people, or if I had a really big pilot group of students and I needed extra hands, sometimes I would have, some extra help there. So it sort of fluctuated between, I would say, like 3 to 5 people at any given time, but the core team was maybe just us, that three I mentioned.
All right. It's pretty interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So basically you were, like kind of adding value to or to the team, but kind more in like a just-in-time fashion, if we want to
Yes.
say it that way. Like,
Yes. Very
we now
much. Yeah.
did this, and
Mm-hmm.
and there
Mm-hmm.
we go. And
Very
that's
much
also
so.
right. And also that's also very interesting. How did you find these people when you need them? I mean, it's like I think it's there's quite a lot of things there to actually coordinate and get this kind of
Yeah.
knowledge and
Yeah,
experience
for
when
sure.
it's right.
So, So again, I think, people use the word networking a lot, but it gets kind of lost in translation. I think everybody has a different meaning of what networking is to them. But over the years, while founding the company, I built a
Mhm.
lot of relationships with people that, they also were founders in some ways, or they had things they were working on, but we supported each other at different times in our businesses. And so, if I ever got a really big
Mm.
opportunity and they need to come assist, they knew enough about what I was working on and what I was doing to kind of, help facilitate certain extra things. So I was just grateful to have really great relationships in my network.
Mm.
Yeah,
Nice.
yeah.
That's super cool. And thinking about networking, right?
Mm,
What was like the preferred way that you have to go and make this networking happening? And are
yeah.
there any particular tips that you can share with us? Any secrets, maybe?
Yeah, that's a great one. I used to ask this question a lot, and I think something that I learned over time was and a piece of advice that someone gave me, so I don't want to take credit for it. But networking really is, to me, about getting to know someone else and like hearing their story and learning about them. I think the problem is when we go into it with this, like, what am I looking for? What do I need? What can I get from this person? It becomes really transactional, and it loses the meaning, right? It loses the value. And I think a lot of people just focus on what can I get from this person or get from this interaction, as opposed to really trying to, learn what drives someone, what motivates them, why are they at this event, why are they working on what they're working on, what makes them passionate about the problem they're trying to solve. And I think those just lead to better conversations that just kind of form the foundation for stronger relationships down the road. Because the truth is, you really don't know where other people are going in life. You don't know when you're going to need help. You don't know when someone else is going to have an opportunity and they're going to need help. Like, you have no idea. So going into it with the mindset of like, what am I looking for? What can this person help me with? I mean, you're thinking about right now. You have no idea what down the road can look like. And so I try to just be genuine and curious about other people and just have good conversations and trust that the right people will, appear at the right time. And that's my advice now. Back then, I did not, I wasn't following this advice back then. A lot of
Hmm.
times it was very hard to know who are the right people to talk to and where do I go and things like that. But, over time, you start to get a better sense of where to spend your energy, traveling and going to these events and having conversations that don't really lead anywhere. You'll figure out,
Hmm.
I think, your style over time of how to connect with people in a way that works for you naturally.
Hmm. All right, that's great. And I think it's fantastic that based with all of the experience that you now have, right? That you can
Mm-hmm.
see it that way now, and that you can share it with us this way.
Mm-hmm.
Because for sure, I think as you mentioned, right, many times it kind of comes to this transactional nature where you are kind of looking for what you can get, but
Mm-hmm.
building these relationships really pays off, I would say, in the future, and not only professionally. I would say you can get to know great people, and you can even become friends in the long run, or something similar.
Mm-hmm.
And they can give more to your life, much more than just the professional
Absolutely.
relationship, and that I always think it's great.
Mm-hmm.
All
I
right,
agree with you.
that's
Yeah.
perfect. Great, Darren. Okay, so let's go back real quick to the MVP part. I
Yeah.
think there's always this question, like when you are, creating this MVP, how can you balance, like launching early, because that's pretty much
Mm-hmm.
like the objective, to have something to show, and
Yeah.
also, at the same time providing enough value to the first users, so they can
Oh
actually
man.
use it, and
Great question.
uh-huh, and,
Great
and start,
question.
yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So something again that I've learned more is I think, we've MVP has become the thing we all know, right? So it's just we all want to do, the most minimal viable thing that we can and put it out there. Um but there's other concepts, right, that are very useful to consider, right? So the you might hear minimal lovable product or minimum shippable, or there's a lot of different things. So, you really want to think about going back to that pain point you're solving. Like, what is the real problem that people want solved? And it might not be what you initially think. And that's why it's important to also understand, what are they doing today to solve that problem? Because that'll help you understand what is that minimum lovable thing that they need, right? So how do you make something just better enough to where people actually use it, love it, share it, recommend it to other people, or whatever the case might be. Um, so I think that's the key part, is really figuring out what is the bare minimum thing that people will love, and how do I put that out affordably, quickly, and where I can, test it. Because the reality is that there's so many tools now, that you don't really need a developer in the beginning stages. You don't really need a CTO. It's great to have it, super important to have it if you're doing a technical startup, of course, but we're talking just proof of concept, early stage, you as the founder just trying to see if something will work. There are so many tools out there, no code, low code. You've got so many automation tools now. And yeah, you would really be surprised what you could probably put together, once you know what people really want to solve a problem. Something very simple that can do that without having an entire application or raising a ton of money and spending a ton of money, paying developers, especially if early stage, if like maybe if you've never built like a technical startup before, or if you've never, worked in that space. Then I get it. I've seen a lot of founders lose a lot of money because they just don't know certain things. So they work with a big development firm, and they blow through lots of money and don't get a ton of value because they weren't really familiar with building an application. So starting out small with what you can afford, the tools that you can afford, and just building something that people will really love, first. And I think that'll put you in a great place to know if you should keep moving forward with the idea.
All right, yeah. So I think we don't really run ads here, but would you mind sharing with us some of your favorite tools that you would normally use for this kind of initial prototyping?
Oh, for sure. So there's two tools specifically. People have probably heard of Zapier. Zapier is amazing. It can help you connect all your applications to each other without using code. And it's so powerful now. It has so many applications that it connects to by itself. So great tool. There's a free tier. And of course, like with all free tools, I'm not oh, cool. Sorry, I wasn't sure if I was frozen right there. But like all great tools, yeah, of course it has like some limitations on the free tier, but it's super useful even on the free tier. There's also one called make.com. So make.com. Make is great. It's similar to Zapier, just has more tools that it connects to. So that one's also great. And again, I think this is great for building workflows, without code, without anything like that. So you have endless options to create kind of prototype tools, without spending a lot of money, like we said before, and being able to test out your ideas and like really validate your ideas, especially if you're not, like I said, a technical founder. Of course, there's kind of a technical component to these things, depending on how complicated you want to get with it. But just initially starting out, I think those are two incredibly great resources that both are free, but have, paid a very affordable paid tiers. They can get you a long way in the early stages, of just prototyping or kind of testing out your idea. So those are two really, really cool ones. And then you also have, for anybody trying to do like mobile development, you have, is it Bubble? I think it's called Bubble. Let me check. I think it's bubble.io. Yeah. So you've got Bubble, which is a no code platform, and then Adalo is the other one I'll recommend, ADALO .com. And Adalo is great for anybody who wants to do like a mobile application. And you just don't have a mobile team or mobile development team, or you don't have a experience in developing a mobile application. You can quickly set up something that works on both iOS and Android. Very affordable. You can do it in a weekend if you had all your business requirements kind of down. And again, you can put this in front of people, and I mean, they have databases included, so you can actually, to the end user, they wouldn't know that it wasn't a real application for the most part. And you could do that all yourself in the early stages. And of course, when it comes to scaling and wanting certain customizations down the road, that's a bridge that we can cross later. But those are kind of just an example of certain tools that I think are really helpful that didn't exist when I was first starting out. That if you don't even have a huge team, or you don't know the right key people yet, even just having something like this to prototype your idea out will help other people understand what you're trying to do more, and likely encourage them to want to work with you, because they see that you will take the initiative and try to build something. You're not kind of just waiting on someone to come build everything for you. So yeah, those are just a few tools.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, right, that also talks good about you because or yourself, because you are really proactive in showing that. So that's also cool.
Thanks, Edgar.
Yeah, absolutely. So what about user feedback, right? Because in early stages, and I would say it's like super important all across the lifetime of your product. And there might be like different strategies to incorporate that into the product. But in the early stages, how would you say would be like the best way to start incorporating that feedback and really decide what would be, worth producing or worth operating or not?
Yeah, great question. I think that it depends on where you are. So if you have paying customers, then I would definitely prioritize the feedback from the paying customers over others, right? In the early stages. But if you aren't at that stage yet, maybe if you have users or people who are really committed to whatever you're trying to do, then maybe I would prioritize their feedback over just random feedback from a forum. But essentially, I would just prioritize whichever of your users is kind of providing you the most value in terms of, if they're a daily active user, or if they're a power user, or if they're a pilot user, again, paying user is the ideal scenario. But if you don't have that, if you're pre-revenue, anybody who is using your product and who believes in it or believes in you as the founder, who can sort of help you and who's giving you feedback that is meaningful, then I would just try to prioritize that. But it's a dance. It's going to take some time to understand, to your point, Edgar, like, who do I listen to the most versus who do I, not ignore, but you have to weigh out what you work on. You can't work on everything all at one time, right? So
exactly.
Yeah, just depending on who your customers are, you'll start to figure out, who are the right people who are adding value, and then just start to prioritize that feedback more.
All right. Yeah. So what do you think, Gabby? I think that's really, very insightful to know how to keep building these products. What's your opinion there? Because you're also, on the product side.
Yeah, and I actually wanted to ask about this because it's something that we usually do. Whenever you are gathering requirements and understanding the app and all that, do you use these elements such as user personas and user journey flows and things like that?
Yeah, definitely do. And it just depends too. There's so many different. Right now, my favorite tool is Miro. I don't know if anybody's used that, but what is it? Is it just Miro? Yeah, yep, Miro.com. Oh, awesome. Just saw a comment there. Yeah, so Miro.com is like my favorite kind of design thinking tool. to that point, Gabby. And yeah, we do lots of kind of workflows, user personas, that the whole visual kind of design thinking process right now for me is between like Figma and Miro. So yeah, we definitely do that.
Yeah, nice. I haven't used that yet, so I will definitely go through it.
For sure. Yeah, yeah. Let me know what you think. Is like it's so fun. It's a fun design tool to actually use. So yeah, but to that point, always kind of thinking about, yeah, when we think about features, we definitely try to think about which persona that feature is for and what we're trying to help that persona accomplish. Right. So and how much value do we think we're going to get out of it? And then there's also like the business reasons, right? Kind of just working backwards of like, why are we for targeting this persona, or like, what do we want? Do we want to grow our user base in this demographic, or do we want them to just love our product more? Do we want them to feel more included? So yeah, so we to that point, we spend a lot of time thinking about those kind of buckets of users and what their needs are.
Great. And how about a methodology? Do you use agile methodology or any other? And how is it beneficial, or what are the
Yeah,
benefits of using it?
yeah, yeah. So we do right now. The startup I'm in, we kind of have like a very loose Scrum Agile process. So I've done both, where we've had like sprints and sprint planning, retros, all that stuff. Right now, we really don't have much of any of that. So like I said, it's kind of a hybrid. We do some of the like just in time waterfall work a little bit, but we still work on sprints. But we don't necessarily have a sprint planning meeting and things like that. We don't do retros and things like that. So it's a little bit of a mixture. But I think what's helpful about it is from the product perspective, it just helps us understand and convey delivery of things, right? So a big part of making users feel heard is they want to know that you're doing something with their feedback. So they want to know that their feedback went from the conversation they had with you and made it onto the roadmap into the product, and you solved the problem they had. So working on sprints or having some sort of agile process is really helpful in us sort of road mapping down the road and saying, okay, these are our big initiatives. This is what we're going to do. This is what we're not going to do. And I think that that's probably just as important, what we're not going to do, as what we are going to do, because we don't want to mislead people and have them waiting for something that isn't actually going to get worked on anytime soon. So the funny thing is, so I've been a dev. I started my technical career early off in software development, and there's not a ton of value for the developers in doing sprints and agile and scrum. Like, it's really for the business and the product people. So of course it takes a team effort to do it well, and people have to buy into it to make it effective. But I think the real value add, though, to your point, Gabriella, is really just us being able to tell the team or the rest of our company, hey, this is what we're going to be doing in Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4, or here's what we're telling customers where their feedback is in the process or in the pipeline. So I think that's the most helpful part. Just timing, delivery, and communication is like the big advantage of having a good agile process.
Right. And I'm not sure if you have used this, but in terms of user stories, if you have, how flexible are you with those once you know and have it written and you know the feature?
Sorry, I think I lost you for just a sec. I know the question is about user story, but can you just say the question one more time?
So if you use user stories and you have written that specific feature, how flexible are you if the client or even the development team says like, yeah, no, we should go this way, or can we change this or that?
Got it.
What's your approach? Yeah.
So the answer really depends. There are times where there are certain business initiatives where we really cannot just undo something or not do something. So there might be pushback from the development side, but it's not a question of if we're going to do it, it's more about how, and the strategy about how, or maybe when. Like sometimes it could end up just being like, well, we won't do it right now, or we'll split it and we'll do something. It's one part of it now, another part later. But sometimes there's things that cannot just be put in the backlog and not worked on. So if that happens, then we work through it and we figure out the best way to move that work forward. There's other times, because I work in startups, there are other times where things completely change. And so there could be an entire epic worth of work that has tons of user stories, and that entire work no longer is relevant at the time. It doesn't mean it'll completely get scrapped. It might, but it could be a thing where we cut lots of scope. So now all of those stories have to be updated to account for the new scope, or you have to rewrite a new story that just has the smaller scope included. So it just depends. So sometimes it can be really flexible in that way that you know, some work that you might have to do some rework, or update user stories that already exist, or change them completely. So sometimes we definitely have to be flexible to that. But I think that's kind of the startup spirit. It's just like you kind of go where things are needed when they're needed, in that direction. So it just depends. It's flexible though.
Mhm. Right. Yeah, no, definitely. I agree with you about the flexibility.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess speaking about methodologies, that would be like a complete episode for that, because I'm really into that debate.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah,
being on the technical side, personally, I feel that whatever that helps the team to reach the goal,
exactly.
and like the dynamics that can be at work there, then that's what should be done, basically, right? Not
Mm-hmm. I
caring
agree
that
with you.
much for all
Yeah.
the ceremonies and all of that stuff. But that,
Mm-hmm.
of course, is my point of view from the technical
Mm-hmm.
perspective. If I
Mm-hmm.
put the other hat, completely understand that part as well, right? But
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Yep.
as I
Yep.
mentioned, perhaps another episode for that. Why not?
Yeah. 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 There's so many philosophies, because I even hear now people are there's always a debate about Scrum too, or Agile, right? Like, is that the right
Mhm,
process? Is that the right way to
mhm,
go? So there's debates all the time about the right way to do things. And to your point, I think it's just
mhm,
what works for your team.
mhm.
Yeah.
Exactly. Super cool. All right. So I have more questions actually.
Cool.
You
Yeah.
also
Let's
mentioned
do it.
growth, right? So from your perspective, what are like the most effective strategies when you're trying to start growing in your experience, what would you recommend?
Oh, definitely having systems. Can't even explain. Like, there's just not enough hours in the day to do most
Mhm,
things. So having systems is super important. So automate as much of your processes as you can. I think that's also helpful because when you ask other people to join the team, in whatever capacity, there's that too, right? You got to think about training them. You got to think about onboarding them and making the best use of their time. So, if you have good systems in place, it makes it so much easier to, help other people, come into the business and help you grow as well. So, when things are chaotic and you only document things for your understanding, you don't document it where other people can read and understand it. You don't have systems in place. There's a ton of things for people to learn. It just makes everything more difficult and take more time. So I think systems
mhm,
is like honestly probably the biggest piece, because um, and that goes for everything too. Like because that's just kind of on the business side, being prepared to scale and grow, but there's also the technical side of scaling and growing, right? Which like I said, I didn't build the initial MVP, but as I went to a coding
mhm,
boot camp eventually, and I that's when I started to actually work on the code side of the MVP someone else had built. But I recognized then I had to learn about like auto scaling our environments. Back then it was in Heroku. If I'm kind of nerding out in the Devi talk now,
mhm,
but that's what people were using. And for my first really big event where I would have a lot of users on the platform, I needed to
mhm,
figure out how I could how the platform could auto scale, like to your point, Edgar, to support that many users. And that was a learning process. So there's multiple things I think specifically in tech startups you have to think about. There's like, can your can your solution scale? So whatever, if it's your MVP, your application, whatever, can that scale? But then also, can your business processes scale? Which is like a completely different thing. Like are you manually spending a ton of time doing a million small tasks that add up over time? Because if so, that's not going to work down the road. So I just think systems are probably the most helpful thing. Good systems to help you grow.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So please tell us a little bit more about maybe your. Sometimes it's difficult to pick one, right? But what would be like your favorite systems that you are implementing and that you use, like continuously?
Yeah.
Could you describe a little bit of that?
Yeah, for sure. I think your client facing processes are probably the most important a lot of the times. So, having a CRM is really important. So, a customer relationship management system somewhere where it's kind of your go-to source of truth, like your tool for all your customer information. I think that's a really important thing to start with. So typically in the startup space, a lot of people can't afford or aren't ready for something like Salesforce. That's like way probably too much CRM.
Mm-hmm.
I personally use HubSpot, and it has a free tier as well, but it has, going back to this conversation about scaling, it has like all the tools and things sort of that you need to scale included in it. So, but there's so many of these different CRM tools. So whatever works best for you and your business, I think, deciding on one that works well for you, that you're willing to learn and use going forward, is going to be so helpful. Because once you start to, nail your processes of, capturing leads, and you start really getting customer data into that CRM, you want the ability to find people quickly. You want to understand what is their status in your sales pipeline. When was the last time you contacted them? All these things, you want a source of truth for that. So I think everything starts with a really good CRM for your business processes, and then from there, all your client facing stuff. So like, timely, well branded emails, super important. They go out to your clients. If you have certain call to actions, if you want them to sign up, if you want them to, join a wait list, if you want them to leave you a review or fill out a survey, having all these things well set up to where it doesn't feel cheap, it doesn't feel unprofessional, it doesn't feel spammy. You just want to keep your brand in mind all the time, especially when you're like reaching out to people or contacting your customers in any way. But having all those processes be really smooth. If you take payments online, give people smooth payment processes. Give them the option to pay by credit, debit, ACH, whatever they want to do. Make it easy. Like, don't say, oh, I have to do PayPal, I can't do whatever else. Make it seamless for people to pay you. Invest in your brand and make sure people feel comfortable doing business with you. Again, you don't want, think about what you would purchase from on a website or online, and what that website looks like, how credible it looks. So try to emulate that. Don't have dead links on your website. So have a privacy policy. I know these are all things that we might not think about initially, but it's important, right, for people who might want to know, what are you doing with their data when they give you their email address or their phone number and things like that. So, just take the time to make sure all these processes are well defined, well branded, and just professional. So if you send proposals to clients and things like that, again, try to have that be a part of your automation process. Make it smooth, make your documents well branded. And try to build some consistency in whatever processes you have. Let people know what to expect from you, right? So it's great if you send one they fill out a landing page and they give you their email address, and you send them one really nice branded email. If every email after that just comes from your personal Gmail account or something like that, like, don't be inconsistent. I think all those things are big in helping other people refer you to other people, share your business opportunity, or just talk about you online, right? Post the link to your website or to your landing page or to your product. So All those things add up with your brand in terms of scaling. So consistency, automation. Yeah, I think those are two really big ones.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think we have one message from Dave, the nerd guy, or at least from that company, and he's saying, I also use HubSpot for CRM, which I mean, in
Nice.
general, as you mentioned, right? I think there might be different options, and depending on the stage and how you are feeling with the tool, and that you're willing to learn from it, or to start using it, then definitely it can be this wide range of options that you can pick. Yeah.
For sure.
So thank you for that comment. And I mean, it's great. You also mentioned something about making it easy for the users, right? And I read somewhere some time ago that that's really key because we as humans, we tend to go the path that kind of feels easier for us, right? That doesn't require that much effort to think about what to do next and that sort of stuff. And then that matches perfectly with that concept that you have to be professional and like share like all your branding in a consistent way. And in that way, I guess you start creating this image for your company, right? And this persona for itself that then you can start sharing, and that can also help you grow organically, I guess.
Absolutely.
So that's great. I think it's making sense in my head. So
I hope so. That's great because these are things, like I said, that there's no right or wrong way to do anything in the founder life and entrepreneurship, the startup world. And I think that's one of the biggest things that I learned is that you can read every single book, you can listen to every TED talk, you can watch all the Gary V videos, watch all your favorite entrepreneurs talk about things, but everyone's experience is different, everyone's personality is different, everyone's industry is different, the problem you're solving, the skills that you have, it all just varies so much. And the reality is that that's the journey, right? Figuring things out, trying what you think is best at the right time, and just doing it and learning from your mistakes, and trying to make better decisions the next time. But I just hope that these are things that, like I said, I look back and I would, if I could give myself advice, these are things I would tell myself now. But it took tons of failures and getting rejected and objections. And so I would just encourage anyone out there, don't be discouraged. If it's something you believe in, if it's a problem that you experience yourself, I would say go for it. I also learned, and this is kind of an aside, but it's possible to fail forward. I think people feel like you just fail and that's it, or if something's not successful, that you don't gain anything from it. But like Edgar and I were talking about earlier, you never know who you're going to meet on this journey. You don't know what role they'll play in your life, or what role you might play in their life down the road. And so just by being courageous enough to go after your idea and to try to figure out those things and keep moving forward, I feel like there's a lot that you can grow personally. You can learn a ton professionally as well, meet great people, and you can fail forward and end up in a better place. You can have better friends, you could have a better job at the end of it, even if your startup doesn't necessarily work. There could be a lot of lessons that move your life forward in it. So I would just encourage anyone out there to go after something that you believe in, if it calls you.
Yeah, that's an awesome piece of advice. Thank you for sharing that, Darren.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it seems that we are running out of time, but I would really feel like I would like to keep talking,
officially, placed in the system.
like for hours. Yeah. So I hope that we get this opportunity to connect again and continue talking more about this and other topics.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. But before wrapping up, I would ask you, right? From your perspective, what are like the trends and the innovations that we should be aware of, especially if we are trying to create a startup moving forward? in how is like new technologies impacting the whole ecosystem.
For
So what
sure.
do you see, and what would be your advice there?
Yeah, great question. So I'm really big on bootstrapping. You know, I'm not a big fan of raising like venture capital money or investor money. So I think 2024 we have so much technology now, excuse me, that can help us do so much more with less. So AI, of course, is the big one, and there's so many AI tools. I would highly recommend that, you know, just stay on top of the latest and greatest in all things AI. So join newsletters about, you know, AI, read about it, dabble. There's a lot of, I don't know them off the top of my head, but there's a lot of different websites that kind of just list every week the newest AI tools in different spaces. And the reason I say just kind of stay up to date on it is because I don't think AI is going away. I think it's only going to get better. And it's going to be, you know, a big part of most businesses. And so, you know, there's so many ways that, again, with a small team or no team, if you choose the right combination of tools and you set up those processes that we talked about before that work really well for you, there's so much that you can do as a solo founder or a founder with a very small team or very little capital. You know, don't let the technical side of things scare you, or the financial side of things getting started scare you, because there's just so many tools out there now that can help with everything we can pretty much think of, or things that we're not good at. Like, I'm not good at design or graphics and things like that, but there's so many tools out there that if you just spend enough time kind of playing around with them, you can figure out how they can work well for you. And so that I think that's the really big one. We have all the tools at our fingertips in 2024 that, you know, you can be a small team or not have, you know, the huge Silicon Valley funding, but, you know, you can still make a huge impact. And I would just encourage founders in 2024 to kind of just get out there and get scrappy. You know, try the different combinations of tools together and see what you can make happen.
That's amazing. All right.
Awesome.
Thank you so much, Darren. From my side, I just want to say this was amazing, and I really hope that we can have more of this because
Absolutely.
yeah, personally, I really had a great time talking to you, and you shared so much value with us. So I'm
Same.
looking
Thank
forward
you.
to that. Thanks a
Yeah,
lot.
Edgar and
And
Gabby, it's great meeting you both. I appreciate y'all having me here.
Yes,
amazing.
thank you.
Okay, Gabby, do you have any closing comments?
Yeah, no, just I want to thank Darian as well. It's been really insightful, a lot of great tips and information in general. I hope we can keep in touch. And if there's any other topic that you feel we should go for it, just let me know and we can do it. Thank you everyone for being here. And thank you, Darian. I don't know if you have any closing comments on your side.
No, I said a lot today. Thank you for
All
having me
right.
again. Thank you, everyone, and y'all
Yes.
take care. Stay in touch.
Great.
All
Thank you.
right.
Thank you
That's
so much.
amazing.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Have
you
a good
so
rest of
much.
the day.
Everybody,
See you next
bye, y'all.
time.
Enjoy your
Bye-bye.
day. See ya. Thanks.